When Bobbie Simpson decided to run for her local school board in Gateway Unified School District in the far northern county of Shasta, she knew it might be a challenge to win as a transgender woman. More than half the voters in Shasta County are registered Republican, a conservative Christian church that believes in the ever-increasing government of God, according to its website, and promotes LGBTQ conversion therapy, is very influential in local politics. And Bobbie says she knows a lot of local LGBTQ people feel unsafe and would rather not be visible.
They just want to go about their life. They don't want to be involved in the politics. They just want to be able to go to this store and come home alive. They have had friends who have had things yelled at them out of cars. They've been spit on. They've had things thrown at them from cars.
But Bobbie ran anyway because she cares deeply about how schools are managed. Her opponent, an incumbent, ran with the backing of the organization Moms for Liberty and campaigned for policies requiring teachers to notify parents if students asked to change pronouns or names at school. Bobbie sent handwritten postcards to voters telling them she would bring the focus back to education and students' needs and preserve the district's social-emotional learning programs. And she won, with 57% of the vote, becoming the first openly transgender person to be elected to a California school board.
I've never made it about me or who I am. It's just about supporting kids and just being authentic and being yourself.
This is Education Beat, getting to the heart of California schools. I'm Zaidee Stavely. This week, the first transgender school board member in California is in a deeply red county. Bobbie Simpson's victory might seem surprising, and you might also assume that her transgender identity would be controversial in Shasta County in the 2 years since. But according to my colleague Thomas Peele, who wrote about Bobbie for EdSource, that's not how it's turned out. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, Zaidee.
So how did you first learn about Bobbie Simpson?
That's a great question. I came across a reference in a story probably more than a year ago and thought it was just absolutely fascinating that a transgender person got elected to a school board in Shasta County. Shasta County has got a political reputation in California as being extremely far to the right. There was a lot of 2020 election denial in Shasta. There was kind of a MAGA takeover of the Board of Supervisors, and they ousted the registrar of voters, and they've had situations where the police have had to pull people out of public meetings. There was an instance where the candidate running for county supervisor showed up at a meeting and accused one of the supervisors of being a Satan worshiper because her license plate, randomly generated by the Department of Motor Vehicles, had the numbers 666 on it. And I thought it was really interesting that a transgender person, given the MAGA slash Trumposphere position on transgender people, could be elected to office there. And I wanted to find out more about the person who was able to achieve that.
And how did Bobbie win?
I think Bobbie just kind of stayed cool and level as I understand it. No, I didn't obviously, the campaign was a year and a half ago, and they didn't cover the campaign, but it seemed that Bobbie presented a more stable choice to voters. There were oddities to what was going on in the school board. There was a husband and wife on it of a five-member school board. So it seemed that voters were skeptical of that much power, even on a small school board, resting in one household. Shasta has a very active Moms for Liberty chapter, and they were endorsing the majority of the board. And the board, before Bobbie got on it, had fired the superintendent of schools without cause. The president of the board later resigned because she had, without the approval of the remaining board members, offered the job of superintendent to somebody and tried to hire them herself. And as one person up there put it, Bobbie offered a stable choice. And they said sometimes they use the word boring to describe Bobbie. I don't think Bobbie is boring at all, but it was like, here's somebody that's not caught up in all this drama and just wants to be on the school board to make sure that kids get the help that they need. Because Bobbie had two children go through this school district, one of whom just graduated, both of whom are on the autism spectrum. And Bobbie was, as a parent, was very concerned about the stripping of social emotional learning and other things that were directly effective on her children and her family.
This is actually the issue closest to Bobbie's heart. She first started speaking publicly at board meetings when she heard that the district might cut back on social emotional learning programs.
I didn't have any public speaking experience before that, but they were attacking programs that had directly benefited my kids and my family. They really did a great job at these schools. They not only work with the kids, but they work with the parents and try and help us learn what the children are going through and like what they're feeling and how we can support them.
When the board discussed policies affecting LGBTQ youth, Bobbie decided to share her own experience too.
I feel blessed to have had the experience I have, and I just I want more people to be able to feel that safety or that acceptance. Mm-hmm. I have a friend who was chased out of her home at gunpoint as a teenager because she was trans. It is a very conservative area, and with the large churches here, a lot of people don't feel safe at home. It's really hard to learn if you don't feel safe. And that's what I really want to promote is like the school should be safe from everything. Like gun violence is a thing right now, but from hunger, like we try to reach a lot of kids, especially in this community. We worry about them during the summer and we have programs because they get most of their meals at school. They need to feel safe to learn.
What struck you most about her story?
There's like almost a serenity about Bobbie. Bobbie is completely herself now. And she told me that that wasn't always the case when she was transitioning. She transitioned fairly late in life and spoke about how hard that was and the stress that it caused her. But now it's like Bobbie is a very genuine person who, enjoys contributing to her local school district.
So, thinking about Shasta County and this particular school district, you might expect that Bobbie's identity would be a big topic of conversation. Can you describe how her tenure on the school board has gone so far?
Her tenure on the school board has gone very smoothly. There's no record of anybody on the board or anybody coming to a meeting and attacking Bobbie on gender politics. I went to a school board meeting. It was all of 45 minutes. And it just, pretty much sailed along. They approved some union contracts. They made a couple of policy changes about some curriculum. It was a very routine school board meeting, and there was absolutely zero gender politics or Bobbie being a transgender person didn't come up at all.
Before running for office, Bobbie did face some harassment. She'd been involved in trying to recall the married couple on the school board, and a member of the Shasta County Board of Education, Arthur Gorman, made a social media post with a picture of Bobbie and the words, "Does this represent your voice for Gateway?"
It was subtle, but it felt very disrespectful. And I went to the Shasta County Office of Education board meeting and just addressed that it's a very unprofessional thing to do to attack a parent who he's in my district. So I'm, one of his constituents.
There was a break in the meeting and Gorman came over to Bobbie, kind of off the record in terms of the minutes of the meeting or anything, and started misgendering Bobbie. And Bobbie was, deeply offended. But Bobbie also learned that some people there supported her. They stuck up for her. That also led at a subsequent meeting for people to come out, primarily from the LGBTQ community in Shasta, and demand that the board censor Mr. Gorman. Now, the censoring didn't happen. No one would put the motion forward to vote on censoring Mr. Gorman. But Bobbie realized, I think, at that point that there was some support, right? That Bobbie wasn't alone, and there was some heart-wrenching testimony from some LGBTQ people about what it's like to be LGBTQ in Shasta. Um, and I think that became a bit of a catalyst and gave Bobbie some confidence going into the idea that she would run for the school board in 2024.
After the election, Bobbie says other board members have been respectful and welcoming and haven't treated her differently because she's transgender.
It has not been an issue. I feel very supported anytime I have questions. There's a lot of lingo that you have to learn, especially your first year being on a school board, and everyone's been very supportive. Whenever I've asked a question, I felt they gave an answer. They gave it respectfully. No, I never felt like, why don't you know this? Or this is something that you should understand. Yeah, the board and the district and all the staff have been very supportive.
And she says the same is true of most of the broader community.
I've been asked a few times about the political divide here, and most of the people I talk to are supportive. I know a lot of people who are Republicans, but we agree on a lot of things, like students, they need education, they need safety. We might have like fiscal differences of opinion, but as far as a community, I feel a lot of support, even though there are a lot of loud voices on the right that are kind of anti-LGBTQ, but I think the majority of people are more accepting.
So, Thomas, what has Bobbie done on the school board? What is she known for?
I mean, she's known for sticking up for children who are neurodiverse like hers and for sticking up for LGBTQ students. And, again, for bringing stability back to this board after all the things that happened there in 2023 with the superintendent being, fired without cause and these attempts from a Moms for Liberty led majority on the board to strip social emotional learnings and any protections over the identity of LGBTQ students. A man who is on a small neighboring school district board, who is the secretary of the county Republican committee, told me that Bobbie has a good reputation as a board member, that Bobbie does her homework. She comes prepared to meetings. She reads the materials. She cares about the children. She doesn't, in any way relate to the drama that had happened at the school district before. She's been a stabilizing force on the board. And the superintendent of the school district, Kyle Turner, basically told me, similar things. And there's a LGBTQ group organized in Reading and Shasta County, and they told me they see Bobbie is doing a great job as an elected official and knocking down any taboos about an LGBTQ person serving in office in Shasta County.
Bobbie says she loves being on the school board because it's a chance to support all kids. She struggled as a student growing up in neighboring Trinity County, west of Shasta. She attended only one semester at Trinity High School and finished at an alternative high school.
I really love the kids. Being able to go and support them at their graduations, especially our alternative high school and homeschool programs. I went through that, so that's something that's really close to my heart, and I know that some of them don't have a lot of support at home. Some of them do, but they face other struggles that has made, traditional high school more difficult. And the first one I went to last year, I had several families come up and talk to me after the graduation who I'd never spoke to before, but they were just very appreciative. They said they were happy to see me on the board, and it was very encouraging.
Thomas, what is the significance of Bobbie's story nationally at this particular time and in this particular political climate?
Well, I think especially in the nation, um, we have an administration that has not been kind to LGBTQ people and trans people, particularly ending transgender care. We see California's law protecting students from being outed by their teachers to their parents under a great deal of stress right now as challenges to that law work their way toward the Supreme Court. It's really not an easy time for LGBTQ people in this country under this presidential administration. And, as deeply blue as California is sort of known for, there are also deeply red pockets of California, and conservatives in some of the rural counties really pushing the parents' rights agenda. We know that the conservative candidate for superintendent of public instruction, Sonia Shore, has built her platform on parents' rights, and she's pushed policies in the Chino Unified School District, where she's the board president. She rather infamously had State Superintendent of Public Instruction Tony Thurmond physically removed from a school board meeting when he was attempting to speak against one of those policies. She just started yelling that Thurmond and others in Sacramento were perverting children. So there's a lot of emotion around these issues, and California is sort of a microcosm of the country on this because there's people on both sides. Bobbie achieving this was a step forward for LGBTQ civil rights in a way, right? There's always got to be somebody first. And given the politics around gender identity in California education, I don't think that Bobbie's election can be ignored on a political significance level.
What are Bobbie's plans for the future?
Bobbie was invited to join the board of directors of the ACLU of Northern California. I asked Bobbie if she was interested or considering at all running for higher office, and Bobbie said it was something that she was thinking about, but didn't want to go into what that office might be. But it seems pretty clear that Bobbie is in political assent some way between the success as a school board member and her ACLU post.
Thank you so much, Thomas.
Always a pleasure, Zaidee. Thank you for having me.
Bobbie says she was surprised at first by how much it means to others to see her on the school board.
Initially, it was a shock because it was kind of new to me exploring my identity and who I was. And I didn't have a strong connection with the LGBTQ community. But I have had so many people approach me, thanking me and appreciating the things I've said at different board meetings. And I've even heard from people across the country. And in fact, I heard from someone in New Zealand who had heard about this story. And I'm still kind of in awe of how many people this has really encouraged or brought, hope to. It's kind of surreal. I'm very proud. I'm very happy that I can bring hope to so many people. I enjoy being visible because I want to bring that hope to people.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Education Beat, Getting to the Heart of California Schools, a production of EdSource. You can find a link to Thomas's story in our podcast notes and at edsource.org. Our producer is Coby McDonald. Special thanks to our guest, Bobbie Simpson, and investigative reporter, Thomas Peele. Thanks also to executive editor, Michelle Quinn. Our theme music is from Blue Dot Sessions. This episode was brought to you by the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. I'm Zaidee Stavely. Join us next week and subscribe so you won't miss an episode.